Welcome to the Deep Dive, the show where we cut through the noise to get you truly well-informed, fast. Today, we're plunging into a topic that's dominating conversations everywhere, really, from the smallest startups to the largest enterprises: artificial intelligence. The promise of AI for business transformation is, well, it's everywhere. Supercharging efficiency, unlocking entirely new opportunities. You hear about it constantly. And the investment. It's massive. Global AI spending is expected to blow past $500 billion annually. But here's the burning question, and honestly, the stark reality we need to look at. Despite all that excitement, despite that monumental investment, a staggering number of AI initiatives just aren't delivering. How can something so powerful with so much potential fall short so often? Our mission today is to really unpack exactly why so many AI projects, from generative AI pilots to huge enterprise-wide deployments, are failing to meet their desired ROI. And, maybe more importantly, we're going to try and uncover what successful organizations are doing differently. We'll be focusing especially on the absolutely critical role of robust AI governance and smart change management.
And to guide us through this pretty complex landscape, we've pulled insights from, well, really a treasure trove of leading research. We're talking about deep dives from places like MIT, Gartner, McKinsey, 451 Research commissioned by Verizon, and also expert perspectives from organizations like Alation, NTT Data, Sand Technologies, MMC Ventures, and Adepto. So yeah, these sources are packed with data, real-world examples. They should give us a good roadmap for anyone trying to navigate this space.
Okay, let's start then by looking at the hard numbers, because the reality of AI project failures is pretty eye-opening, isn't it? What do the statistics actually tell us?
Well, the figures are quite stark. Yeah, eye-opening is a good word. We're seeing estimates somewhere between 70%, maybe up to 85% of current AI initiatives failing to meet their expected outcomes.
70 to 85%, wow.
And some reports go even further. Some indicate that a shocking 95% of enterprise AI pilots don't yield meaningful revenue impact. And maybe up to 98% fail to even reach production or meet their objectives at all.
98%.
Yeah. So just to put that in perspective, that's roughly double the failure rate we see with conventional IT projects.
Double. Okay, that's not just a small stumble. That sounds like a major roadblock for businesses really trying to leverage AI. So if these models, the tech itself, are more capable than ever, what's causing this huge gap, this AI hype versus AI gap we hear about?
That's an excellent question. And it's really where the core insight lies, I think. The problem isn't fundamentally the technology itself. AI models are more capable than they've ever been. The core issue, as our sources consistently highlight, seems to be this chasm between that technical potential and the organizational readiness. It's the surrounding ecosystem, or often the lack of one. Many companies are kind of rushing into AI without having those foundational elements properly in place, and that creates this significant gap between the hype and the actual tangible outcome.
That makes a lot of sense. So, okay, if the tech itself isn't the primary culprit, then what are these core issues the research keeps flagging? Where do companies typically trip up first?
Well, one of the most consistent findings points squarely at the problem of siloed initiatives. We're talking about a major lack of communication, and maybe more importantly, alignment between the business teams, the folks who deeply understand the problems they're trying to solve, and the technical teams who are actually building the solutions.
So it's more than just teams not talking.
Oh yeah, it's business units maybe not fully grasping the data implications of what they're asking for, and technical teams potentially building something without a clear, operationalized business problem really defined. The result, you can get these perfectly engineered solutions that unfortunately solve no actual pressing business problem. And that leads to, inadequate resource allocation, conflicting priorities, the whole cascade.
And I guess it's not just silos. What often goes hand in hand with that is this kind of technology-first mindset, right?
Exactly. So many organizations seem to overemphasize the sophistication of the model itself. They get excited about it. They might pursue, say, flashy dashboards or cutting-edge algorithms without first really grounding their efforts in concrete business problems. Or, crucially, investing in the foundational infrastructure needed to actually support them.
Right. It's like buying a Formula One car, but forgetting you need a racetrack or even just roads.
That's a great analogy, yeah.
And then, okay, even if you build a technically sound model, if it's not actually used effectively, it still counts as a failure in business terms. Which brings us to the next critical point: poor integration with business workflows.
Absolutely. This is huge. AI solutions often just aren't truly embedded into how people actually work day to day. Real-world operations, and this creates unrealistic expectations, practical limitations. Many organizations try to sort of retrofit strategies after the models are already built, maybe even deployed.
Trying to force it in afterwards.
Yeah, and that just causes significant delays, chronic underperformance. It's that classic case of trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole, and it rarely works well.
And what about the fuel for all this AI, the data itself? We hear so much about data quality, but how big of a stumbling block is it really for AI projects?
It's colossal. Honestly, data quality and bias issues are arguably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, stumbling blocks. Think about it. The most sophisticated models are fundamentally undermined by poor data quality, errors, inconsistencies, missing values, all that messy stuff. Some organizations even mistakenly believe the AI itself can sort of magically clean up the messy data as it goes.
Right, like it's a data janitor too.
Exactly, but that usually just leads to flawed predictions, maybe biased outcomes, and ultimately it erodes trust in the system. You know that old saying, garbage in, garbage out. It's never been truer than with AI.
And finally, you mentioned our sources also point to a widespread absence of scaling and governance roadmaps. What does that look like in practice?
Yes, so projects frequently stall because there just aren't structured plans for how to transition those promising prototypes into actual production systems. This includes a lack of forethought around, say, infrastructure maturity. Is our tech ready for this at scale? How do we actually scale these solutions effectively? And what about the critical compliance frameworks needed, especially with regulations tightening?
So the pilot looks great, but then it just stops there.
Pretty much. Without that foresight, those promising pilots often just remain pilots. They end up collecting digital dust on a server somewhere instead of delivering real value.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of the technical and organizational hurdles, but here's where it gets really interesting for me. Because beyond all those issues, people, the human element, are a monumental factor in AI project failure. As one expert puts it, AI adoption ultimately means getting people to work in a different way. And let's be honest, getting people to change how they work is often the hardest part of any transformation. How big of a factor is that resistance, that human element, truly in these project failures?
It's massive. Really, you can't overstate it. One of the biggest human hurdles we see is a fundamental lack of trust. Employees often struggle to trust AI. They have concerns about its reliability, its transparency or lack thereof, and its fairness. Is it making biased decisions? And what's striking, maybe even worrying, is that this concern seems to be actually increasing. One study showed it jumped from 37% of people being concerned in 2021 up to 52% in 2023.
That's a significant jump.
It is, and trust here is multifaceted, right? You need to trust the organization deploying the AI, you need to trust the team implementing it, and critically, you need to trust the actual output of the model itself.
Fair.
If any one of those links is weak, the whole chain of trust can just crumble.
And then layered on top of that is the very human fear of the unknown, particularly around job security. We've all seen the headlines, the sci-fi portrayals. The Terminator maybe doesn't feel quite so much like fantasy anymore for some folks. How much does that anxiety play into adoption resistance?
It's huge. A lot of people genuinely worry that AI will make their jobs irrelevant, or at least change them so drastically they won't recognize them anymore. There was an Aberdeen study that found, get this, 70% of baby boomers, 63% of Gen X, and 57% of millennials and Gen Z fear AI putting their jobs at risk.
Those are big numbers across all generations.
They are. And that anxiety, that fear, it directly translates into resistance, maybe passive resistance, maybe active resistance, and certainly a reluctance to really engage with and learn new AI tools.
We also can't ignore something you hear a lot about these days. Change fatigue. It feels like businesses are constantly undergoing some massive transformation or another.
And they absolutely are. The pace of change in the modern workplace is just unprecedented. Think about this. The average employee apparently experienced 10 planned enterprise changes in 2022. That's up from just 2 back in 2016.
10 major changes in 1 year.
Yeah, that relentless pace, that constant churn, it leads to burnout. It diminishes morale. It makes it incredibly difficult for employees to muster the energy and enthusiasm to embrace yet another major shift, like widespread AI adoption.
It's like asking them to constantly jump onto a speeding train.
That's a good way to put it, yeah.
And then there's a more subtle psychological concept called the uncanny valley. How does that fit in?
Yes, this is that sort of creepy feeling, that discomfort we get when digital entities are almost human, but fall just short in some way. They seem a bit off. So if an AI system feels unnatural or off to users, maybe it's a chatbot that tries way too hard to sound human but keeps making odd, slightly inhuman mistakes, it can really undermine trust. It pushes people away, makes them less likely to want to use it or adopt it.
Interesting. And maybe somewhat surprisingly, our sources also point to generational differences playing a role as well. What's the dynamic there?
Indeed. It seems there's a positive correlation between age and perhaps a lower desire to adopt AI. Part of this might be that the motivation to learn entirely new, potentially complex ways of working can sometimes decrease as people get further into their careers. This means organizations really need tailored strategies. They need targeted training, specific communication plans to engage different age groups effectively, and address the unique concerns each cohort might have.
Yeah.
It's not a one-size-fits-all situation.
Okay, that's a powerful and frankly slightly alarming summary of the challenges. So turning the corner here, for organizations that do want to succeed, that want to beat those odds, what's the absolute first non-negotiable step they need to take according to the research?
The sources are incredibly clear, almost unanimous on this.
Oh.
AI governance must be a forethought, not an afterthought. It has to be baked in from the beginning. And crucially, this isn't just about ticking compliance boxes or avoiding trouble. It's fundamentally about unlocking financial potential and ensuring the long-term business viability of these AI investments.
Okay, so it's not just risk mitigation. What's the measurable upside of getting governance right? Does it really move the needle on the bottom line?
It absolutely does. There's compelling research from Gartner, for instance, indicating that companies with mature data and AI governance frameworks see a significant improvement in financial performance, somewhere in the range of 21% to 49%.
21 to 49% improvement. That's substantial.
It is. And if they also manage to improve their broader data culture maturity alongside governance, that potential improvement could even jump to an impressive 54%.
Wow.
Yeah. That kind of correlation is definitely not just coincidental. It shows a real link between governance maturity and financial success.
And of course, on the flip side, if you neglect governance, you're not just missing out on upside, you risk some seriously costly penalties. Can you give us a sense of the scale of these fines we're seeing?
Oh, the scale can be immense and very public. We see major examples, right? Like Citigroup being fined $136 million specifically for data management issues.
Right.
Meta, formerly Facebook, facing a staggering $1.3 billion fine related to EU privacy rules. T-Mobile hit with $60 million for unauthorized data access. AT&T, $13 million for a sensitive data leak.
Those numbers grab your attention.
They certainly do. Neglecting governance has real, painful, and very public financial consequences. It's not abstract risk anymore.
So governance clearly protects against those penalties, and it seems to boost financial performance. But how does it help build that crucial trust we talked about earlier, both internally and externally?
Trust is absolutely foundational, and good governance starts with trusting the data. Dr. Geraldine Wong, who's the chief data officer at GXS Bank, put it perfectly. She said basically, if organizations and their customers are able to trust the data that the organization is using for such models, then I think that's a good starting point to building that trust for AI governance or responsible AI.
So trustworthy data equals trustworthy AI.
Essentially, yes. It's about ensuring transparency, reliability, fairness, right from the ground up, starting with the data itself.
This also implies that executive focus is absolutely paramount here. This can't just be delegated down to an IT project team, right?
Absolutely not. That's a common pitfall.
Yeah.
CEOs and CIOs, the C-suite, they need to fully understand and internalize that AI governance is a core business issue, not just a technical one. They have to set the vision. They need to empower data leaders across the entire organization, not just in IT. And critically, they need to commit to making governance a continuous evolving process. It's not a one-and-done thing.
Right. You can't just set it and forget it.
Exactly. Without that sustained top-down commitment, it's always going to be an uphill battle to implement effectively.
Okay, so if governance is the key, what are its core pillars? What are the fundamental areas companies absolutely need to get right?
Well, first, and perhaps most crucial given our earlier discussion, is data quality management, specifically for AI. As we touched on, AI and machine learning models are only ever as good as the data they are fed. It's foundational. This means prioritizing practices like data profiling, really understanding your data, making AI lineage traceable.
Lineage, what does that mean exactly?
Good question. It means having end-to-end visibility. Being able to track where the data came from, how it was transformed, which data sets fed which models, and how those models produce their outputs. It's about auditability and transparency.
Okay, got it. Like a supply chain for data and models.
Precisely. And also centralizing metadata, the data about your data, And critically, making data quality a shared responsibility across all the relevant business units, not something just dumped on the IT department to fix.
That point about data quality being a shared responsibility feels really crucial. And of course, when we talk about sharing data, especially potentially sensitive data, that immediately brings us to the next critical pillar, security and privacy.
Exactly. The risks here are significant, particularly with data breaches or unauthorized access, especially when you're dealing with personal or confidential data to feed AI systems. It's a huge target. So organizations absolutely need to implement robust measures, things like encryption, strong role-based access controls, data masking or anonymization techniques, and real-time monitoring to detect threats. And all these policies must align with the relevant regulations, GDPR in Europe, HIPAA for healthcare data in the U.S., and increasingly things like the emerging EU AI Act and principles like the U.S. Blueprint for an AI Bill of Rights.
There's a lot to keep track of there.
There is, and many leaders are now seeing this natural convergence, this overlap between data governance and AI governance, because these security and privacy issues are just so inextricably linked, you can't really govern one without the other.
Makes sense. So shifting from the what to the how do organizations actually operationalize AI governance? What are the practical steps to make this happen on the ground?
Our sources point to several key practical approaches. First, and maybe echoing the point about silos, cross-functional collaboration is absolutely essential. AI governance is most effective when it's integrated across the board. Data teams, AI teams, legal departments, compliance, risk, and critically, the actual business units who own the processes and outcomes. You need to actively work to dismantle those silos we discussed earlier.
And in today's world, you can't really talk about operationalizing anything complex without mentioning technology itself. How can tech actually help streamline governance, make it less manual?
Right. Leveraging technology to streamline governance is pretty critical for efficiency and consistency. Data intelligence platforms, for instance, can automate a lot of the heavy lifting. Tasks like data quality monitoring, lineage tracking, compliance enforcement checks. Automating these helps prevent human error and ensures policies are applied consistently. The key, though, is often to look for tool-agnostic solutions, tools that can work across your diverse technical environment, because most companies have a mix of systems.
So use tech to manage the tech, essentially.
In a way, yes. But beyond the tools, it really comes down to building a governance culture. It really does. The goal is for governance to be seen as everyone's job, not just the responsibility of a small, isolated team. It needs to align clearly with broader business goals so people understand why it matters. A people-centric approach is key here, ensuring every part of the organization feels invested in it and understands their role. It's about embedding ethical AI practices and data discipline into the organizational DNA.
And you mentioned earlier this rush to AI, and we often hear about ballooning expenses. How can organizations prioritize projects effectively to keep costs under control while still innovating?
Yeah, that urge to jump on the AI bandwagon without a clear plan can definitely lead to fragmented, sort of scattergun approaches. And that means massive, often uncontrolled spending. Organizations really need to assess cost factors thoroughly right at the beginning. Ensure technical concepts are fully developed and validated before attempting to scale them widely. And critically, focus investment on high-impact projects that are tightly aligned with core strategic business objectives. This helps avoid inefficiencies and, frankly, wasted investment on pet projects or things that won't move the needle.
This seems to tie into another point, emphasizing integration and collaboration, which often means confronting and modernizing some foundational elements that might be holding things back.
Absolutely. Many established organizations really struggle with legacy infrastructure, old systems, outdated processes. These can be severe bottlenecks for implementing and scaling modern AI. So modernizing these foundational elements is often crucial. And alongside that, it means proactively managing the diverse group of stakeholders involved in AI decisions. This often includes educating less technical staff, maybe in finance or marketing or operations on AI's true capabilities, but also, importantly, its limitations. Managing expectations is key to collaboration.
And while it might sound a bit counterintuitive when you're thinking about big AI transformations, the advice often seems to be start small and then scale intelligently.
Yes, exactly. Experimentation is valuable. Absolutely. You need to try things out. But those experiments must be guided by forward planning for scalability right from the start. You want to think about things like modularity in your AI stack architectures, using approaches like microservices.
Microservices, can you unpack that briefly?
Sure. Think of it like breaking down a large, complex AI system into smaller, independent, manageable building blocks or services. Each microservice handles a specific function. This makes the whole system easier to update, troubleshoot, and crucially, scale. You can scale up just the parts that need more resources without disrupting everything else. It offers flexibility, which is vital for long-term AI success and maintenance. Strong infrastructure monitoring is also key here.
Okay, so starting small, thinking modularly for scalability, that makes a lot of sense. And kind of building on that idea of minimizing upfront risk and learning as you go, another practical strategy emerging, especially for new AI deployments, is this buy now, build later approach. What's the thinking there?
This can be a really smart move, especially now, given how fast the AI landscape is evolving. It's hard to bet big on building something custom from scratch when the tech might change dramatically in 6 months. So for new deployments, especially for non-critical use cases or using less sensitive data initially, consider buying commercial, off-the-shelf AI solutions first. This limits your upfront investment, lets you experiment and learn quickly, and retains significant flexibility. You can figure out what really works for your context before potentially committing to large-scale, expensive, in-house development down the road.
Learn by buying before you build big.
Essentially, yes. It de-risks the initial stages.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about the challenges, the importance of governance, and the path to success. But ultimately, how do we actually know if AI is delivering value? Measuring success, specifically AI ROI, seems like it might require a more nuanced approach than just looking at immediate profits.
It certainly does. Traditional ROI calculations often focus very heavily on immediate, easily quantifiable financial metrics, like increased sales revenue or direct cost savings, maybe profit margins. But AI-specific ROI needs to include broader, often less tangible benefits, which can be just as vital, if not more so, in the long run. Think about things like improved operational efficiency across the board and increased capacity for innovation or gaining a significant sustainable competitive advantage. These are huge value drivers.
Can you give us some tangible examples of those broader, maybe harder to measure benefits?
Absolutely. For instance, AI-powered automation in customer service. It might lead to significantly faster throughput, quicker responses, faster issue resolution. That might translate for one organization into annual savings of, say, $120,000 just by reducing manual effort and wait times. AI can also enhance worker productivity across a whole range of tasks, freeing people up for higher value work. Or it can drive innovation, like how one company, OE Terra, used AI to gain deep market insights, which directly enabled them to identify and expand into new global markets successfully.
So real value, but maybe not showing up immediately on the sales line item.
Exactly. These benefits might not be direct, immediate revenue, but they free up valuable resources, improve customer and employee experience, and crucially, open new strategic doors for the business.
But I imagine measuring these kinds of benefits isn't always straightforward. What are some of the main challenges people face when trying to quantify AI ROI?
You definitely hit on it. Quantifying those intangible benefits like improved innovation or better decision-making can be really tough. How do you put a precise dollar value on that? There's also often a lack of standard metrics across different industries or even within the same company for different projects. Those persistent data quality issues we talked about can muddy the waters for measurement too. Plus, you have the complexity of integrating AI into existing systems, which makes isolating the AI's specific impact difficult. And costs can fluctuate over time as models need retraining, data volumes grow, and hardware needs upgrading. It's a moving target.
So, given those challenges, what are the best practices for actually getting a clear, defensible picture of AI ROI?
It really starts with setting clear, smart objectives right at the outset. Remember SMART: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. And these objectives must be aligned directly with your core business goals. Then, critically, you need to establish a baseline. Measure your key metrics before the AI project begins. What are your current customer satisfaction, CSE scores? What are the existing error rates in the process you're targeting? You need that before picture to compare against.
Makes sense. You need to know where you started.
Precisely. Then, estimate all the costs involved and be thorough. Development, data acquisition and preparation, hardware, software licenses, ongoing training for users and maintenance teams, the compute power. Get it all down. And then continuously track your key metrics during and after implementation using both quantitative data, the hard numbers, and qualitative data like user feedback or employee surveys. Finally, you can apply the traditional ROI formula. Net benefits, that's total benefits minus total costs. Divided by total costs, then multiply by 100 to get a percentage.
Okay, so benefits minus cost divided by costs.
That's the one. And communicate those results effectively, often using visual aids like charts and dashboards to make it clear. And maybe the most important part, remember it's a continuous process. Use the insights you gain from measuring ROI to refine your strategies and improve future AI initiatives.
Looking at real-world examples always helps bring this to life. When we think about AI success stories where the ROI is clear, what are some of the standout cases people might know?
Well, think about Netflix's recommendation engine. That's a classic. It reportedly accounts for a massive 75% of total viewing hours on the platform. And something like 80% of the content people watch is discovered through those personalized recommendations.
That's incredible. It basically is their user experience.
To a large extent, yes.
Yeah.
Similarly, think about Amazon's product recommendations. Those customers who bought this also bought suggestions. They're incredibly powerful, reportedly driving around 35% of all customer purchases on the site.
35%. Wow.
Yeah, these aren't just cool background features. They clearly demonstrate tangible, massive, impactful ROI by directly driving engagement and revenue.
Okay, clear wins. But on the flip side, to learn from mistakes, what about a notable failure where things went wrong, maybe related to some of the issues we discussed?
A prominent, often cited example is IBM Watson for oncology. This was a hugely ambitious project aiming to use AI to help diagnose and treat cancer. But it ultimately became seen as a multi-billion-dollar failure.
4 billion, I think I read somewhere.
Yeah, around that figure. And the postmortems pointed largely to some of the core issues we've discussed, particularly poor data quality, inadequate clinical validation in real-world settings, and perhaps an over-reliance on synthetic or limited training data rather than messy, complex, real patient data.
So back to garbage in, garbage out, and needing real-world grounding.
Exactly. It really underscores just how critical data quality, proper validation, and realistic integration are, even for, maybe especially for the most ambitious and well-funded AI projects. You can't skip the fundamentals.
So wrapping this all up, what does this really mean for you, the learner, trying to navigate this incredibly dynamic AI landscape? It seems AI's transformative power is undeniable, but its success.
Well, it isn't just about the code or the algorithms themselves, is it? It really hinges on bridging that gap we talked about between the raw technical capability and the actual organizational readiness to use it effectively. It sounds like it requires a fundamental shift, moving away from a purely model-centric approach, where you're just focusing on building the coolest algorithm, towards an outcome-centric approach. Is that fair?
That's a perfect way to put it, outcome-centric, where you truly invest upfront in that robust governance and smart change management to bring your people along, and in building a culture that embraces both the technology and its very real human impact. Your takeaway here, then, is that understanding these interconnected challenges, the tech, the data, the process, the people, the governance, and the solutions, is absolutely crucial. It's about building trust, both in the systems and within the organization. It's about intelligently managing the inevitable change that comes with AI. And it's about ensuring that every AI investment you make or that your organization makes delivers real, measurable value that actually pushes the business forward.
Exactly. It's about making AI work for the business and its people, not just deploying tech for tech's sake.
So as we all navigate this increasingly AI-driven world, maybe the most critical algorithm for success isn't actually written in Python or R code. Maybe it's written in how effectively we manage to orchestrate human collaboration, ethical foresight, and rigorous data discipline. Which leaves us with a thought for you to consider. What will be your first step or your next step in taking AI governance from an afterthought to a forethought in your own sphere of influence?